meditate just a little bit. To calm our minds, kind of clarify our focus, check in with ourselves, see what's going on in our own minds, and then generate a positive motivation for engaging with this session. So sit comfortably, meditation posture. Sitting on the ground with our legs crossed, our torso erect, not falling to the front or back or to the left or right, but balanced. And then our hands in the lap, the right hand on top of the left, the tips of the thumbs touching in a triangle or an oval. And then the shoulders broad and open. And then just let your shoulders hang down naturally from your collar. And then tip the head slightly forward, so that the chin is slightly tucked in, and the back of the neck is a little bit elongated. And imagine there's a perfect line. You can imagine your head and your spine, your body is hanging from a golden thread that comes down from the sky. It's hooked right here at the apex of your crown. And then there's a straight line down through the base of your spine and to the ground. So gravity holds you straight down towards the center of the earth along that line. And then you relax, let your body just settle down. So the legs crossed, the torso erect, the hands resting in the lap, the shoulders broad and open, the head slightly tilted forwards. That's 5 points. And then the teeth, the jaw, the mouth, the lips just resting in a natural position. And the tip of the tongue gently touching the roof of your mouth, the roof of the palate just behind your front teeth. And then the eyes not fully open and not fully closed, but just kind of relaxed and letting your gaze fall at about a 45-degree angle down towards the ground, but not looking at any specific point. Just kind of pulling the focus back a little bit. So the focus of your eyes is kind of somewhere between the ground or the floor in front of you and between your face itself. Right? So then let your gaze just rest unfocused in space. And then, of course, the mental attention is not directed outwards towards what we see or what we hear or what we feel with our body, but our attention we direct inwards towards our inner experience. So with those 7 or 8 points, that's called the Varachana posture. Then just relax in that physical position and bring your awareness, direct your awareness towards the experience of breathing. And just try to watch, continually watch your breath without being distracted. And then of course when you see your mind distracted, let those thoughts or those perceptions go for now, and then bring your attention back to simply observing the breath. So let's meditate like that for just a few minutes. So then relax your attention. So don't try to focus your mind on anything specifically. Just let your focus just relax. So whatever thoughts or perceptions arise, just let them arise freely. And you can also relax your body. A lot of times when we're new to meditation, we tend to think, to meditate well I have to sit perfectly straight and have my shoulders way back and have my chest very open. And we have this concepts about how the posture should be, and because of that, then we clench our muscles and try to hold different parts of our body in a very tight way. So that's also kind of a mistake, because that's not sustainable. Right? So the way, whatever position our body is in while we're meditating, it should be relaxed, so that we can just be comfortable in that position for half an hour or an hour or 2 hours or however long we're going to meditate for. So it's good also when you first sit down to do a meditation session, right? The first thing is just to put your body in a comfortable position. So, it helps a lot before you do a meditation session if you actually do some yoga or some stretching or a little like Tai Chi or other kind of exercise to loosen up your joints, loosen up your muscles, get your breath, kind of expel any stale air that's in your lungs, get fresh air, fresh breath. Get your blood flowing a little bit. Because also if you're very sluggish and feel very heavy, then you'll easily fall asleep, or the mind won't be clear, right? So it's not good to meditate like right after you wake up, even without washing your face or kind of moving around a little bit. It's not good to meditate like right after a heavy meal, for example. It's more difficult because all the blood from the body is going to your stomach and working on digestion, so it's difficult to use much energy in your brain, in your mind, where you need it. It's also difficult to meditate like late at night when you've been pushing yourself to do a lot of different tasks. And right before you go to bed, naturally you're tired, so when you sit down and relax, you tend to just relax right into sleep rather than relax and meditate. Right? So, So it's good to meditate when you have some energy, you don't have too much food in your stomach, you're fully awake, fully alert. But the best is in the morning before you've started all the busy activities of the day. So that, in the morning when we first wake up, you wash our face, you do a little exercise, move around a little bit, get some fresh air. That time, because we've been sleeping through the night, hopefully, then our mind is quieted down. We don't have so many thoughts going. So the mind is naturally a little more clear, a little more empty. Kind of like the streets in the city. If you get up early and take a walk at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, it's much more pleasant than if you try to take a walk at 9 o'clock in the morning when everybody's filling the streets going to work. So like that, if we do meditation in the morning before our mind is full of all the thoughts about everything we have to do for the day, then it's a little easier. So then when you sit down to meditate, then the first thing is just the posture. So the main point of the posture is to again, just to rest, put the body in a position where where we can sit without moving for the duration of the meditation session. Say first just 30 minutes or maybe an hour. That we can sit more or less without really moving, and we're comfortable. So that, because when we're meditating, meditation is an activity of the mind. So it's kind of like, just like if we're playing, if we're playing a sport, if we're playing cricket or something, then it's mainly an activity of the body, right? We have to catch the ball and pitch the ball and bat the ball and, watch the other players. So you can imagine if you're playing a game of cricket, but you're just thinking about something that's totally unrelated, or you're thinking about what's going on with your family, or maybe there's some tragedy in your family, and you're thinking about that, or maybe you have to take an exam in school the next day, and you're thinking about that. Then because your energy is primarily in your mind, then you're not going to do very good at like batting or pitching or catching, right? Because your mind, your energy is primarily focused with these thoughts, not what's going on with your body. So like that in meditation is primarily action of the mind. So if we're distracted, if our attention is distracted with what's going on with our body, with how, how my legs feel, how my arms feel, what I hear, what I see, then we can't pay attention well to what's happening with our mind. So the purpose of the posture is just to put our body, place our body in a way, the main purpose is place our body in a way that we don't have to pay attention to what's going on with our body for the duration of the session. Right? So it means putting the body in a way that's comfortable, but we don't fall asleep, and then we're also not distracted. So, yeah, within the 7 points I explained of the posture, the legs crossed, the torso straight and erect, the hands in the lap, the right hand on top of the left, and then the shoulders broad and open. That's the fourth. The fifth point is the head tilted slightly forward, or the chin tucked in a little bit. It's the fifth, and then the sixth is the teeth, the mouth and the lips and the jaw just resting in a natural position. But within that, then the tip of the tongue just gently touching the roof behind your front teeth, the roof of the mouth behind your front teeth. That's the seventh. And then the eighth is the eyes. So the eyes, letting the gaze just fall down at about a 45-degree angle. So the reason for that is twofold. If we have our eyes fully open and we're just looking straight ahead, then it's very likely we'll be distracted by the things we see. We'll start to think about things we see in the environment. So it just, when we raise our eyes up or open our eyes, it tends to stir up the mind more, even at a more subtle level, and just actually thinking about what we see. Whereas if we have our eyes totally closed, then we're prone, if we're already lethargic, we're prone to fall asleep. We're prone to become, just kind of sleepy, basically. So that's why if we have our eyes just half open, so it means kind of, half open means kind of, you just relax the eyes and put your gaze at about a 45-degree angle down towards the ground. And again, not looking at anything in the space in front of us, but withdrawing our, the point of focus to about halfway between our face and the floor, right? Or you can even, you can experiment with leaving the kind of, the point of focus further out, or drawing it further in, right up to the tip of your nose. In some texts it describes you should focus on the tip of your nose to meditate. But actually, if you really try to see the tip of your nose, of course you can't see it because it's facing away from your nose. But you can see the sides of your nose here a little bit. But if you really strain to see that, it becomes a strain on the eyes. So I tend to think probably the meaning of those texts is, if you put the field of vision about here, the point of focus is about this distance, then naturally the tip of your nostrils arrive, it appears in the peripheral vision. But again, it's kind of like, with the eyes, it's kind of like we make the whole field of vision all peripheral. There's no singular point of focus. So we kind of leave things out of focus. And again, what we're looking at is not, when we say looking at something in meditation, we're talking about looking with the mind, not with the eyes. Right? So we're not really paying attention to what's appearing in the space in front of us. So just letting the eyes rest unfocused. And then I was going to say relaxing the muscle around the eyes. It's good also when you're getting comfortable in your posture to, another technique is to scan through the body. Just briefly scan through each part of your body, from the beginning at the top of your head, and then scanning down, through your brow, through your scalp, through the back of the head, and the back of the neck, and then the jaw, and then all around the eyes, the cheeks, the chin, the lower part of the neck, and the collar. All just gently scan down through your body. By scan, I mean bring your mental attention to each part of your body and just ask, how does that feel? What's going on there? Do I have tension or tightness? Or is there some dis-ease at that place in the body? So then whenever you notice any tension or tightness or dis-ease, as you inhale, imagine drawing in very kind of soothing, healing, white light energy, and it flows into that part of your body. And then as you exhale, any tension or dis-ease or discomfort flows out of that part of your body, just flows down to the ground and nourishes the earth, like that. So like that, you kind of just gently scan through your body and release any tension. Because oftentimes we don't notice, during the day if we're stressed, we're staring at the computer screen or trying to read quickly through something or trying to listen in a meeting, trying to listen to people talk very carefully, or thinking about something and getting irritated about it, we hold tension. We hold stress and tension in different parts of our body, in different muscles and tissue. And we oftentimes don't notice that. But then, if we sit down and conscientiously just look at how different parts of our body feel, especially around the eyes, in the jaw, the back of the neck, where the shoulders meet the neck, it's different, and the stomach for some people. For different people, it's different, right? But we notice that, there's tension in that part of the body, and then if we conscientiously, intentionally just release it, it really brings a lot of comfort. It really helps to let the blood flow, let all the muscles kind of relax and expand and become soft again, and then let whatever toxins kind of flow out. And it's good physically, and also it's good mentally, because if physically we're holding in a lot of tension, naturally it's going to disturb the mind. If physically we feel very relaxed, then naturally the mind also is going to feel more relaxed and kind of soft and open. So yeah, that's another technique, is to mentally scan through the body, release any tension, and imagine with each breath, so again, with each breath, inhaling very rejuvenating white light energy with the fresh air, and then exhaling any stale kind of toxic energy. You're going to visualize it being very dark and just going into the ground and nourishing the earth. So then, once we're comfortable, so I've mentioned like 7 or 8 points of the body, and then the scanning the body. So then we're comfortable in the physical posture, so we can just let our body then rest in this posture. And then the actual meditation begins, right? So then what to focus our mind on. So just previously I suggested just observing your breath, just watching the breath. And then as you're watching the breath, so it's important to make that determination, to make that mentally clear to yourself. Okay, for the next, so you can think for the duration of the meditation session. So last time I mentioned 3 minutes, maybe we'll do another 3 minutes, just a second. So I think for the next 3 minutes, I'll just try to focus to the best of my ability. I'll just simply try to observe my breath, right? And then when I see my mind is distracted, I'm thinking about something else or paying attention to something else in the environment around, I'll notice that as a distraction and let go of that for the time being. I can come back to it later. But for the time being, for these 3 minutes, it's not long, I'll just let go of that and then bring my attention back to just watching the breath. Right? So I like to think of it, the period of meditation as it's like a mental holiday. For that time, we give ourselves permission to leave everything else behind and just enjoy the simple act of observing a very simple but beautiful phenomenon, our own breath, which is the source of our life. Right? In every moment. So let's try that again. Enough said. Okay? So try to remember what I just said. The different points of the posture. Beginning with the legs, the crossed legs, spine straight, hands in the lap, shoulders broad and open, the head, chin slightly tucked, so the head slightly tilted forward, mouth and teeth relaxed, tip of the tongue gently touching the roof of the mouth. So that brings, so one other thing. So another point of the posture, and especially this tongue touching the roof of the mouth, is because in this posture, the subtle winds of the body, the prana, the chi, they flow very smoothly, evenly through the body. That's also conducive to meditation. Okay, so tongue gently touching the roof of the mouth, and then the eyes half closed, gazing at a 45-degree angle down towards the ground. And then take a few minutes and scan through your body, as I've described. Beginning at the crown of your head, and just gently bring your attention to each part of your body and see how it feels. And if you feel any tension, as you inhale, and breathe soothing, rejuvenating, like white, light energy into that part of your body, and as you exhale, breathe out any tightness, tension, disease. So take a few minutes and scan through your entire body, from the crown of your head down to the soles of your feet, letting yourself relax in that way. So then once you feel very comfortable in your meditation posture, scan through your body. I feel very relaxed and calm, but hopefully not sleepy. Right? I feel very alert as well. So now let's do 3 minutes of actual meditation, right? Focusing on the breath. So again, we'll take breathing as the breath as the object. There's different ways to watch the breath, but what's commonly advised for beginners like us is to watch the entire cycle of breath, right? So watch as we inhale through our nose and mouth, flows down through the esophagus, fills our lungs, upper lung, middle lung, lower part of the lungs, our abdomen rises, and then the inhalation slowly comes to a cease, and then we exhale, and that the warm, moist air then comes out of our lungs back through the esophagus, through our mouth, nose, nasal passage, and out into the air, into the environment, and then we inhale again. So don't try to force your breath to be long or short or deep or shallow. Just breathe naturally. But try to, with your mind, just observe very precisely, very clearly, observe each moment of this process of breathing without being distracted whatsoever. Right, so we'll try to meditate for 3 minutes, just watching the breath. But of course, distractions will arise. We should just expect that from the beginning. And with the corner of the mind, about 25% of our mind, we use as like a guard or like a monitor, watching to see if distraction has arisen or not. Right? Because we want to imagine as soon as distraction arises, we don't want to be, start thinking about something else and then only, a whole minute, 2 minutes later, we realize we're not watching our breath. We want to see as soon as the mind becomes distracted to something else. Right? So with 25% of the mind, we mentor our own progress. So then when we see other thoughts or, arise or attention is wandering to other things, then let that go. I think I can come back to that later. I don't need to follow that. And bring your mental focus back to just watching the breath. All right? So let's try to simply watch our breath, watch our breathing for the next 3 minutes. practice your attention there. The chimes are telling us to stop. So that's an example of breathing meditation. So there's basically, we can divide all different kinds of meditation into two types. It's called placement meditation and analytical meditation, which is roughly equivalent to shamatha and vipassana in Sanskrit. So shamatha is usually placement meditation. So that means placement meditation is called that in English, placement, because we're just simply focusing our attention on one object, and without thinking about or engaging in discursive thought or analysis, without asking questions or trying to come up with reasons or without trying to generate any particular attitude or sensation, or without making any aspirational prayers, or trying to dig deeply into understanding the nature or the varieties of that phenomena. Just simply looking at something, just like we were doing now. Just deciding I'm going to take as my object of meditation the breath and simply observe it. And that's all. So that's called placement meditation, because we're placing our attention on an object of meditation and then just watching it and trying to keep our mental focus very still, very stable, but have a continuous, an unbroken continuum of awareness of the object. Right? So in the case of a breath, when we're watching a breath, the goal is to have an unbroken continuum of full awareness of the experience of breathing, without being distracted by any other, mental kind of perceptions whatsoever, right? So, of course, at the beginning, we have a lot of distraction happening. But if we practice again and again, bringing our attention back and trying to hold our attention on this object, then we can extend the amount of time that we can have a good, clear, and vivid focus on this object without being distracted. From half a second to 1 second, maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, on up to gradually. If we practice well over a long time, we can effortlessly keep our attention on any object we wish as long as we want. Right? It becomes such that as long as we make the determination, I'm going to meditate on this, I'm going to focus my attention on this object, then the mind just stays there, unwavering for as long as we want. So that's called placement meditation. So in this case, we were watching the breath just now, but there's many, many other objects of meditation, things we can watch. We can watch our feelings. So in this course tonight, actually, I'm going to introducing mindfulness meditation and compassion, right? Mindfulness and compassion. So what we've been doing so far is basically mindfulness meditation, mindfulness of the breath in this case. But in the classical presentation of mindfulness, there's actually four main types of mindfulness, divided according to the objects. Right? So first is mindfulness of the body, and they're divided according to objects, and they're divided. They're presented in order from the easiest to the more difficult, right? More difficult kind of mindfulness. So the easiest is mindful of the body, being mindful of how am I sitting, how am I walking, how am I lying, how am I using my body. So that's one kind of mindfulness. So you can think when we first sit down in meditation posture. We're practicing, when we're looking at our posture, how are my legs? Am I sitting straight? How is my head? Are my shoulders open? Do I have tension in any part of my body? All of that is part of generating mindfulness of our body, of how our body is. Right? So especially just by doing that at the beginning of a meditation session, and especially this scanning through the body to check how do I have tension or discomfort, tightness in parts of my body. If we do that, regularly as part of a meditation practice, it becomes habitual, and it affects how we relate to our body all through the day, in all the activities. We become more aware of, like when we're sitting on the bus, how am I sitting? When we're sitting in class, when walking down the street or standing in the store, like how am I holding my body? Is it in a healthy way that brings comfort and brings ease, or is it an awkward way that brings discomfort and brings dis-ease? So the first kind of mindfulness is mindfulness of the body. The second is mindfulness of feelings. So it can be physical feelings or mental feelings, right? So feelings, physical or mental feelings, they're both divided into three types, three flavors. Pleasant feelings, neutral feelings, and unpleasant feelings, right? So today we're not going to spend any time specifically, taking that as an object, looking at our feelings. But it's quite self-explanatory, right? If you're, you can just sit and be aware of, physical feelings or mental feelings that arise, are they pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? How, and what way, or why. There's a lot to investigate there. So that's the first, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the feelings. So now I want to look at, we'll experiment with the third, mindfulness of the mind is the third. So I'll just list the four, right? Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind, and then mindfulness of Dharma, right? So Dharma has different levels of different meanings. So Dharma can be you can think of all phenomena. Everything that exists is a Dharma in one way because it exists. So one interpretation of that is looking at just all phenomena. But another interpretation of that, of Dharma, another meaning of Dharma is the truth. Or another meaning of Dharma is like a spiritual teaching, right? So this fourth one can encompass many different things. And we'll come back to that later. But now I want to, it follows easily from this meditation of watching the breath to watching the mind, right? So we'll practice that for a few minutes. Just as an example of a different kind of object that, because I'm explaining there's two different kinds of meditation. There's placement meditation and analytical meditation. So far we've been doing placement meditation, and within that we've been taking the breath as an object, but there's many other kinds of things you can focus on. You could focus on a sound, you could focus on a physical sensation, you could even generate a certain attitude like love, loving kindness or compassion, and just stop, not without analyzing, just try to stay in that experience, like focus on the experience of that emotion. Or you could come, you could be thinking about something and come to an epiphany, a realization of a kind of truth, a little truth that you hadn't seen before. And then at that time stop analyzing and just focus on the experience of that truth, the realization of that truth. That's another kind of placement meditation, right? So as an example of a different kind of placement meditation, we can try focusing on our breath, not on our breath, on our mind, right? So usually I find it's easier to start with the breath. So so just get comfortable in your posture again, right? Come back to your posture, the different points of the posture as well as you can remember. And then just bring your attention to your breath for a few seconds as a way of bringing your attention within. And then, so for the next 3 minutes, try to watch your mind, right? So, I'll just say a few words to explain because some of you might not have tried this before. So you might be wondering, well, how do I watch my mind? What is my mind? Well, it's okay. You can ask that question. You can take that as the object of your meditation also. But clearly there is a watcher, right? When we're watching our breath, there is some aspect of us that is aware of our breath, that is directing our attention towards the breath, right? So that mental part of us, the mind or the consciousness or awareness, they all are synonyms for the same thing. But it's the part of us that's not our body, and it's the part of us that enables us to be aware of anything, enables us to think, enables us to feel, enables us to see or hear or touch, enables us to be aware, enables us to be animate versus inanimate as a thing, right? So just try to focus, and we have that experience. So You can think about, it's okay to think about what is the mind, where is my mind, what is my mind, but don't think about it in an intellectual and disconnected way. Bring the question back to your own experience, right now, in this moment. What is my mind? And try to just focus on that, without going into a lot of discursive thought about what it is and what it's not. Try to experience your own mind in this present moment. And just that, just like a curious observer, observing one's own experience of awareness, right? So of course the one observing is your mind. The thing that's being observed is also the mind itself. But try to, be comfortable with that kind of, maybe seems like an anomaly or confusion or a contradiction. But it's something we can do, right? Okay, so I'll stop talking. For the next 3 minutes, just try to simply observe your own mind. So again, relax your attention. So I'm keeping these sessions, our actual meditation sessions very short, just 3 minutes. Not because that's all you should do, but just to, because we don't have so much time together, to give you a taste of different kinds of meditations. And then, and so sort of you know the sequence of how to set up, your own session. And then, so instead of spending just 3 minutes on each, you can spend 10, 15, 20 minutes according to your own desire at home. But it's good. If you're new to if you're brand new to meditation, it's good to keep the meditation session short, just 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, with the idea. And you should stop while it's going well, right? Because it's like a conversation with a friend. If you stop the conversation while it's really going well, you look forward to talking with the person again. But if you keep talking, eventually you're going to disagree about something and then get an argument, and then you don't look forward to meeting that friend again. So in meditation, if you stop while it's still going well, the mistake is to push yourself. You feel like, oh, it's going well, I'll just keep going, I'll keep going. And then you get tired, right? Because it takes a lot of mental energy to meditate. So you get tired, and then you don't focus so well, and then by the end you feel frustrated because you can't focus like you want to. And then, so then you stop, and then when you think about sitting down to meditate again, you have negative feelings about it because the way it ended was not so good. Actually, this is an interesting point in psychology. What's this guy? Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow? Who's the author of that book? Daniel Kahneman. Yeah, it's one of his main points in psychology. What's that field of psychology? Behavioral psychology. What? Okay. Anyway, that's one point he makes is the way our memories are formed is primarily by the end of the experience, rather than the whole thing or the beginning of it. We largely take away, we picture the whole, the memory. So of a meditation session, the memory of how the whole meditation session was, will be strongly shaped by the last part of the experience, rather than the whole thing. So that's another reason it's good to stop while it's going well. So you have a positive feeling about it, so you have enthusiasm to go sit down and meditate again. And then another reason is because, we don't want to get in the habit of sitting with a very low quality of attention. So by keeping the session short, then you can apply a lot of energy. You it doesn't have to go on forever. You're only meditating for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. But so you feel free to apply a lot of energy and try to maintain a very high quality of attention with in whatever way you're directing your attention. And then at the end, stop, rather than push yourself to go, and then gradually you run out of energy. And so you can't keep the same quality of attention, and then your mind starts to wander, and your focus becomes weak, and then you sit for a long time with a very low quality of attention. You don't want to do that. Okay, so that's kind of the duration. And then just one more thing before I stop for questions is, so basically I'm kind of building up here, but I wasn't really planning to go this way, but it kind of happened. So, but when you think about doing a meditation session, there's about 4 main parts. Right? The first is sit down, get comfortable in your posture. The second is generate a positive motivation. So we're actually just coming to that. The third is the actual body of the meditation session. And then the last is dedicate whatever positive energy, whatever merit you've created, to dedicate that with a prayer for the future. Direct that positive energy towards things you aspire to be or to happen, to become, for yourself or for others in the future. If you know there's people sick or in need of prayers, pray for those people at the time. If you feel like you're kind of lost and need to be found, pray for guidance, or whatever's going on in your life or the lives of others around you or in the world at large. If you see that somebody drowns, like I think did yesterday, a bunch of people just drowned on a boat trying to get from Libya to Europe or something, bring those people to mind and pray for them at that time. So end the session with directing the positive energy you generated towards the session, towards a wholesome goal. So those are the 4 main parts: motivation, the posture, motivation, actual session, and then the dedication at the end. Okay, so any questions so far? Yes?
There are 2 problems which happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is there are sometimes habits which happen.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, which is I feel is a little disturbing for me. Sometimes I feel very depressed. Like, something from here, I feel it's so depressed, I don't know why. And sometimes it's very, for a long period of time. Like, once it was for such a long period of time, 1 hour, I actually had to sit down and watch a comedy movie so that I could go from my system. So, I don't know.
Yeah. So the headaches specifically related to meditating? You get headaches when you meditate?
Yes.
Really?
I don't know if it's placement or sometimes I do analytical as well. I have to figure it out when it happens. But yeah, right after meditations, when I come out this light, but headaches are not very long. Even with that depressed feeling is not very long.
Okay.
But off and on they keep coming.
Yeah, headaches, I'm not sure. It's more a physiological thing. I haven't heard that so much before. I mean, it's not that maybe your head is already hurting, but you just didn't notice until you meditate. You think it's actually, yeah, I don't know. That I'm not sure. The second one, depression. Yeah, I mean, in general, like when we meditate, it's like we're accessing more. You know, our mind is like an onion. There's many, many different layers, or like a cabbage. There's many, many different layers. So usually we operate on the very superficial, external kind of layers. But when we sit down and meditate, it's like we access more and more subtle layers of the mind. So, you know, all different kinds of emotions, and not only emotions, all different kinds of experience. Sometimes we have visual, like hallucinations, or hear sounds, or have thoughts arise that we don't usually think. Or sometimes even physical sensations. Sometimes people feel like they're floating up, or sinking down, or falling, or forward, or feel like, I mean, I've had feeling like I could swear there was a trail of ants like crawling up my back, but then, you know, I stop and there's nothing there at all. So those things, it's normal to have all kinds of strange experiences while you're meditating, and typically we just realize that we want to recognize that there's all different forces in the mind that we're not ordinarily aware of, and as we meditate, we sort of create a space where those things can bubble up and those forces can play out and cause different experiences to arise. But we want to be like a neutral observer, just watching all those things arise and not judging good or bad, or not pushing away, not trying to hold on. You know, when we have really blissful experiences, don't try to grasp on and be like, oh, I want this to happen every time, because that becomes the biggest obstacle. And when we have very disturbing experiences, again, look at it as an objective way. In an objective way, like, well, what can I learn from this? What is this maybe telling me about? You know, is there some kind of memory that, you know, something that happened in the past that I just kind of tucked away, that I didn't want to deal with then, that's leading to this? Or are there some kind of feelings, you know? I mean, usually depression is related to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm a psychiatrist now, so maybe you should correct me, but it can be related to low self-esteem or negative feelings about ourselves, critical negative feelings about others. I mean, oftentimes depression also related to just hyper, hyper concern, like a hyper concern for just oneself alone, and not being able to see, you know, how others have the same kind of problems that we have, right? The same kind of life trials and tribulations and challenges that we have, but being totally obsessed with just our own story, our own kind of drama, and our own problems. But yeah, I don't know if it's. I mean, yeah, just kind of ride it out. You know, don't let it stop you from meditating, but try to be aware of it. You know, be more aware of it. Why does it always arise, or does it arise on some days, not other days? Does it arise? You know, could sometimes also physiological kind of connections. But usually those things, they change. You know, over months or years, they kind of change, and then other experiences arise. It's quite normal. Yeah. Other questions?
I have a question. We've been told that the word Khor is the word Ling, which means to familiarize oneself with the mind.
Yeah.
But when the sessions are so short, because normally it's advocated that you meditate for very short spells, then how do you familiarize yourself? Because your mind keeps moving all the time.
Yeah.
You're trying to just cope with that.
Yeah.
I mean, to let it go, and to sort of stabilize it in some sense.
Yeah.
So in that way, how do you get familiar with what is going on so deep in the session?
Yeah. Well, there's two different things. One is you can do longer sessions. Like I said, here we're just doing short sessions because it's like a sampler of buffet, you know, just taking a little bit of each dish. But then when you go home, you can make the dish and just enjoy
But
it.
that is if you're possible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if you're able to.
Yeah.
Because I find it very difficult to go beyond a particular point.
Yeah. So with whatever period of meditation you're comfortable with, just do that. 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And then take a break, and then do again. And kind of, so yeah, it's true. Subhashini, I didn't mention that. Subhashini is pointing out that the word for meditation in Tibetan is gom. So that also has another meaning of to familiarize oneself with, or to become habituated to something, or to familiarize with oneself with something, so that it becomes more routine or more automatic. But the way that meaning relates to meditation is because, like this activity of watching the breath, the more we do it, the easier it becomes. We become more used to doing it. We become more accustomed to doing it. We become more familiar with the practice, and so we gain more skill at doing it. Like riding a bicycle. The first time you ride a bicycle, it doesn't go very well. You usually fall down a few times. But with practice, you become more familiar with how to, move the handlebars and how to do the pedals and how to shift your body on the seat so you stay balanced. Everything kind of starts working together. So the second thing is just repeat it. If you can do it, the more sessions you can do in a day, the more progress you'll see, the more familiarity you see happen. And then the third, I can add one more thing. The third thing is, we can divide up all of our time in the day, in one day, between the time spent in meditation sessions and the time spent out of meditation sessions. Or you can say between session time. You should say in session time and between session time. So the idea is that if you're doing serious like meditation retreat, then you would spend 12, 14 hours in session, and then you have another 12, 10 hours out of session and in between sessions. But we can even think of that in our ordinary life, where maybe in one day we only have 1 hour in meditation session, and then we have 23 hours between session. But the idea is, the purpose of meditation really, like one Geshe explained it nicely, I thought, is like if we do a meditation session in the morning, we're practicing for how we want to be the rest of the day, right? Meditation, what we're doing, the kind of person that we create out of ourselves in the meditation session is the kind of person we want to be like the rest of the day. So the quality of mental attention, the quality of awareness, the quality of focus that we generate during the session, of course we can't keep that same quality of attention between sessions. That's totally unrealistic to expect that. But at least it should improve the quality of mindfulness and awareness that we have between sessions. Right? So the idea is to try to not totally let go of whatever quality of attention we generated during the session in between session time, but maintain some trace of it, some of that flavor should go through the whole day. So thereby we become more familiar with the states of mind we generate during the session. And one more question before I carry on to the next thing. Yes.
So when you just bring your attention and you go to think of thoughts, and there are some thoughts that just dissolve, but then there are some thoughts which it's not about you, it's like you're concerned because the air is getting polluted or something like that. It's a reality that's very hard to ignore.
Yeah.
So is there a distinction between the things that you thought were important but dissolves away because you're not able to bring your attention, and there are things which is a state of nature, which is a reality which you cannot ignore, and therefore you can still feel anxious about it?
Well, in general, yes. We can distinguish between different kinds of thoughts in all different ways. Those that are selfish versus those that are selfish. Those that are negative and destructive versus those that are positive, and maybe lead me to doing something good to help others. Of course, it's good to distinguish between different kinds of thoughts in many different ways, like that. But here, in the context of doing placement meditation, where we're just trying to watch our breath for 3 minutes, then all those thoughts are distraction, right? It's not that those thoughts are inherently distractions, inherently like just useless, but it's in the context of this. You know, it's like when you're playing cricket, all of a sudden this side of the line is in and that side of the line is out. Naturally, there's no natural like in and out, it's just a piece of field. But as soon as you start a game of cricket, you have to, okay, this is in, this is out. So it's like that. When you're doing placement meditation or any kind of meditation, you always, there's a meditator, the person, there's the activity of trying to focus your mind or familiarize your mind with something, meditation. And then there's an object, the thing that you're watching. So always in meditation, as soon as you start that practice, there becomes an object that you're focusing on and other things that you're not focusing on. So all those things you're not focusing on are distractions, right? Yeah. So, so in this context, they're distractions, but it's not inherently bad. Okay, so far I've been talking about basically placement meditation. So what's the other kind of meditation? Analytical meditation. Analytical meditation. So now we want to, the rest of the session we'll look at analytical meditation. So the first thing, I want to do is just to spend a little time generating a positive motivation. But before that, I want to bring up, we'll relay some information to you that is very relevant to what we're talking about today. Learning how to meditate and doing mindfulness and compassion meditation. But I think it's also interesting because it's really exciting that these days there's a lot of, in the last 20 years, there's a lot of new research being done about meditation and the effects of different kinds of meditation on the brain, especially, by neuroscientists and in the field of psychology and neuroscience. So I was just watching a YouTube by one of the foremost researchers in this field. His name is Richard Davidson. Richard Davidson. He's at the University of Madison in Wisconsin. And he's one of the main collaborators in this series of dialogues between the Dalai Lama and different kinds of scientists, from different fields, called the Mind Life Conference, which has been happening for about 20 years. So the way Richard Davidson, I was watching, he has quite a few videos on YouTube. So I was watching one of the ones, it's from 2015. I think it's called something about well-being and the science of the brain or something like that. So, like part of his personal story, he was a very mainstream, just neuroscientist, researcher for 20 years without touching kind of meditation or positive psychology at all. And then but he privately had a meditation practice and interest. Sometime in the 90s, he was in his first kind of dialogue with the Dalai Lama, and he was presenting his research on the neurological activity related to depression and anxiety, and I think other negative kind of emotions. And the Dalai Lama challenged him and said, well, you can use all this, the incredible technology you have to look at what's happening in the brain and map how that's related to, a person's experience, emotional world. But can you use that same technology to research how positive emotions work? Emotions like, calm and peace, or kindness and affection, generosity. Can you similarly research the way that the brain activity relates to positive emotions? So then he took it upon himself as a personal kind of challenge to begin researching that, this person, Richard Davidson. So he's been researching kind of positive psychology and positive emotions, how they relate to brain function, and especially whether we can change those or not. Because, of course, we all want to be happy. We all want to be free from suffering. Animals, human beings, everybody's the same. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to have miserable experiences. We want to have pleasant, fulfilling, positive experiences. So he was saying, there's 8 different points. First, he made 4 points related to why it's even possible to do this kind of research on the effects of, it's called, cognitive, what is it? Basically cognitive neuroscience, you can say, cognitive neuroscience, or cognitive, behavioral psychology is another more psychology side. Contemplative neuroscience. Oh, contemplative, because contemplative referring to meditation practice, right? So contemplative neuroscience. So, I mean, when he was like 40 years ago, this was totally unheard of. This is not a field of research in neuroscience or medicine at large. Really, the first person to bring mindfulness meditation into the medical kind of world was Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's a huge promoter of mindfulness meditation to deal with pain, anxiety, stress, and depression, and so forth. And he's a medical doctor. So he's one of the old kind of founders of this. Using basic meditation practices to treat different mental and physical ailments.
Yes, it's called mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Oh, thank you. Mindfulness-based stress reduction. Yeah, that's Jon Kabat-Zinn. Yeah, Jon Kabat-Zinn. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Richard Davidson making these 4 points. Why is it even possible to do this kind of research now? So the first one is because of the discovery of neuroplasticity, right? The fact it used to be held that our brain, from the time we're a child, our brain develops until we're in our 20s, and then we have all these neural connections formed, and from that time on, they just deteriorate, right? And the brain doesn't really change; it just deteriorates. Whereas it's been, it was found in the last 40 years that actually that's not the case. All through our adult life, the neural pathways, the connections between the different neurons in the brain are changing according to our experience and our behavior and our, the way we use our mind and our mental capacity, the way we use even the way we use our limbs and our body and all of our senses, right? So the brain is very plastic. Instead of being rigid and fixed, it's plastic. It's continually changing, and not changing kind of randomly or chaotically, but changing on the basis of how we use our brain. If you just take a brain-based model, of course in Buddhism we accept mind as consciousness as something separate and brain as something separate, and they have this intimate connection. But if we just think about the brain-based model, then you think according to how we use our brain, it shapes and it changes just like our body. Right? So the first point is neuroplasticity. The second point he made was the event of neuroplasticity. It represents this complete world shift, a complete shift in the way we look at how the brain works, which it's changing all the time and all through life. Right? The second is, what is it called? It's with genetics, and should have written it down. Anyway, I can describe it. Basically, genes, the way our genes worked. Again, it used to be thought that we're born with a certain set of genes, and that just determines how certain things, physically and mentally happen for us through our life. That the genes are sort of fixed. But epigenetics.
Epigenetics was in the pharma industry who called out on these drug companies who are manufacturing antidepressants and anxiety drugs. And he was the one who started using the epigenetics, to call them out on it. Because he said even the gene expressions can be moderated in the way we maintain ourselves and practice ourselves.
I see. Okay. Right. Yeah. So that's the basic thing: is that even we're born with a certain set of genes, but that's not fixed. It's not fixed how they'll express themselves. Right. How the genes express themselves is highly malleable. It's highly dependent upon different, the kind of care we receive as a young person.
He uses the word. It's not just about nurturing or nature that gene expressions can be modified.
Yeah, fixed genes would be like just nature, right? But there's also a big nurture element based on how we use our body and our mind. Like he gave the example of a young child. Like if you look at a young child that's nurtured, give a lot of nurture and care and affection by the mother, that can cause certain genes to express themselves for the rest of their life. Whereas another child doesn't receive that kind of nurturing and care, it can change, it can cause a different set of genes to express themselves for the rest of their life. Yeah, he gave another example, but I don't remember. So also the way our genes kind of affect how we are as a person is not fixed. It's also very plastic. That's the second thing. Then the third thing is, I don't remember the third thing now. I don't remember the fourth thing. The fourth thing, and he said this is the most controversial, is that we're all born with basic human goodness, right? So how is this known? Is that if you do experiments with children, even as young as 6 months old, and show them either different video images or a live person of one scene enacting aggression, then the children they don't like. Another scene enacting altruism and kindness, children naturally like. So that shows that and this has been, I think, replicated in quite a few different studies with different groups, but it shows that, and not only humans, even animals have the same, been found to have the same. So that humans have a natural predisposition towards liking kind, altruistic, affectionate behavior, and not liking, having aversion to aggressive, kind of violent behavior, bullying behavior. So it looks like we're, in a way, we're sort of predisposed to kindness and goodness, is what you're saying. Yeah, I don't remember the third one now. Neuroplasticity, epigenetics. What is the third one? I don't remember right now. And then predisposition towards goodness. So they're saying these kind of like major shifts in the way mainstream science sees how the person, what makes up a person's psychology, has really opened up the way for contemplative neuroscience and study of contemplative, cognition. So then he was saying from his research, then there's 4 takeaways. So I just want to list these real quick. For what are the main constituents that we need to be a whole person for well-being? 4 constituents for well-being. So the first is, let me see. When I was sitting in my hotel room, it was very easy to remember. But now I'm sitting in front of you while trying to present it, it's more difficult. So the first is, first constituent for well-being is resilience. So resilience means, so first he wanted to point out also, these 4 things, these 4 constituents for well-being, they're all things we can train, that we can develop. It's not like we either have them or we don't, but by practice and training, especially in contemplative practices, doing the kind of meditation we're doing, we can develop these skills. So the first is resilience. Resilience is when we suddenly have physical pain or emotional trauma, that afterwards we don't hang on to it and cling to it, but rather we can let it go and just go back to an equilibrium, state of equilibrium, right? And it goes actually before the case too, that when we see maybe we expect a difficult kind of experience coming, we don't get all stirred up before it actually happens, but we can remain calm in the face of the storm and then fully experience it when it happens, and react in an appropriate way, and then let it go afterwards, right? So this is kind of resilience. So if you're interested, I suggest you go home and look it up on the internet. I won't tell you all the details. There's a lot of juicy details, but we need to get on to compassion. So second, resilience. The second thing is having a base positive affect. Having a kind of a base state of a positive state of mind, a positive outlook on life, I guess you could say. So this is another thing we can develop. Learning to distinguish between destructive emotions and healing emotions. And when we see destructive emotions, then kind of don't put our energy into it, try to reduce them, and increase positive healing emotions. And as a regular practice. So this comes back to familiarity, as something that we just make as part of the more we make it as part of our intentional practice, it's like working out in the gym. If you go out and work out in the gym every day, gradually you just become healthier and healthier and healthier. You're less susceptible to sickness, right? You're less susceptible to all kinds of ailments and long-term disease because you regularly use your body in a way that strengthens it. So it's the same with the mind. If you distinguish between things that are disturbing, attitudes and thoughts that are disturbing to the mind, and those that bring peace and clarity and insight, and a kind of positive affect to the mind, you reduce the one, increase the other, then that gradually just strengthens your mental health. That's the second thing. The third thing is generosity. He's saying in many, many different studies, it's found that just simply practicing generosity is one of the most positive things. It causes you to have positive emotions very easily and very quickly in that very moment. So it's really beneficial for one's mental state, just to practice generosity regularly. And I think it's good to note here, he didn't know it, but generosity, because many people make the mistake, generosity means I have to give away things all the time. Because we're especially in like modern consumer culture, we're used to thinking about, doing something means it involves things, right? Getting things, or giving things, or making things, or selling things. So oftentimes people think generosity means things, giving things. But actually it doesn't. Generosity is the attitude wishing to give, wishing to be able to help. wishing to be able to do something. You know, having the wish that we could help, or you know, or give, or that even not even that we could give something, having the wish that somebody can have something, can have that what they need. That's the mind of generosity. So it's the opposite of miserliness. Miserliness is a mind of poverty, thinking, oh, I can't do, I don't have enough. And when we feel like I don't have enough, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough food, I don't have enough clothes, I don't have enough friends. When we have this impoverished attitude about ourselves, then of course we can't be really concerned about wishing that others have more, have enough. But when we have a sense of contentment, and I have enough, what I have is fine, it's enough. A sense of contentment for ourselves and a sense of gratitude for what we have. Gratitude is also opposite to miserliness in many ways. When we have a sense of gratitude for what we have, then the mind is more relaxed, more open. It's easier to be concerned about others. And then we can have this concern for others. Oh, may they have, may that poor person have more money. May that person without a job, may they find work. May the person without care have care. May the person who's lonely have friendships. So it's this mind wishing for others to have generosity. So that brings positive emotions very quickly, very easily. And then the fourth, so again, the four are resilience, sort of just base positive affect, trying to generate mental wealth-based positive affect, and then generosity, and then the last is attention, focused attention, right? Having focused attention or mindfulness. So he's saying in many studies it's shown one of the most clear causes of unhappiness is a wandering mind. Just a mind, just kind of random discursive thought. Or there's another nice term for it, I'm not remembering. A kind of wandering mind or
scattered mind.
Scattered mind, yeah, scattered attention, rumination. Rumination. Just ruminating about all different things, about the past, about the future. It easily leads to, just kind of worry, anxiety, resentment, all kinds of negative emotions. And then when we're ruminating, we're not focused on what we're doing. So it's like we're short-circuiting our ability to fully enjoy what's happening in the present moment. So many simple things we do, just like breathing, or washing, or just sitting, being in a space, can be so enjoyable if we're just fully present in that moment, fully aware of what's happening within us, without us. Then, but if we're ruminating about all different things, we're not really present, and we're not really there because the past or the future are not really there. We're just caught up in our own thoughts, and then we cause ourselves so much misery by doing that, and we create so much unnecessary complexity in our lives, in our lives in that way. Okay, so it's saying these are four constituents to well-being. So, okay, so now motivation. This was actually supposed to come within the first 10 minutes of the class, but now we come to it. So, at the beginning of a meditation session, so I reversed the order actually. It's better to do, sit down, sit in a comfortable posture, take a few deep breaths, relax, kind of bring your attention within, and then generate a motivation. And then if you're going to do placement meditation, then actually do the placement meditation, and then dedicate it at the end. But here we did the placement meditation before. Okay. But now we can take a moment. So at the beginning of the session, motivation, what's the point of motivation? Well, to have a good reason for meditating. If every day we just sit down and meditate because the doctor said it's good for me, or I saw an article online that said, it has all these benefits. That's okay, but it's not really coming from within, right? So we want to look within ourselves and find, why am I doing this? What is the purpose? What am I trying to achieve for myself, or for others, or for the whole world at large, both in the short term and in the long term? Right? So if we have a very positive reason for doing something, a very, a reason of loving kindness or compassion, a sincere wish to do something good, to become something good, either with ourselves, beginning with ourselves, our family, our society, our world, our universe, then whatever action we do, it becomes a very positive action by the power of the intention, by the power of the motivation. So of course, when we're meditating, we're not meditating to become, more powerful, more famous, more handsome, or more wealthy. We're meditating to become a better person, right? To become a more sane person, a more kind person, a more clear-headed person, have more control of how we want to be, what kind of person we want to be, and become that, right? So it's very helpful at the beginning of a meditation session to just stop for a few minutes and think, okay, what are my short-term aims, both for myself and for others, and all the others I know or know about, and what are the long-term aims I have for myself and for everyone, expanding out to the whole world, beginning with our family, our friends, our peers, our neighbors, expanding out to the whole world. Then what is it I want to achieve? So the more altruistic and the more long-term the motivation is, then the more powerfully positive that act that follows that becomes. Right? Yeah. So there's a lot more to say about this again, but I'll just leave it at this. So let's take a few minutes now and just think about your own motivation. Right? So for each of us, it's different, but think about your own. Try to generate a motivation. Why? Why do I want to do? Whatever I'm doing today, or this evening, or tomorrow, or in my life, on one hand, but in a more limited sense, imagine we're at the beginning of we're at the beginning of a meditation session. Think, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to engage in this activity, meditation? Okay, relax your attention there. Okay, so again, motivation, it's good to pause. Say you're going to meditate for 20 minutes. First sit down in the space where you're going to meditate. Be comfortable in your posture. Take a minute or two. When you're new, it takes more time to get comfortable in a posture. But as you become more familiar with meditation, you can just fall into that physical posture more and more quickly, more easily. And then take a couple minutes to spend on motivation. And then do the actual meditation session. Right? So now we come to that. So then within the meditation section, actually like meditation session, you can do, it's good to do maybe 5 minutes of, say you're going to meditate for 20 minutes. We won't count the getting comfortable in your posture, doesn't count. Then spend like 2 minutes on the motivation, 2-3 minutes on motivation. Sometimes if you feel inspired and that's you're thinking, you really enjoy thinking about that, you can just do motivation the whole time. That's also a kind of meditation, actually. It's analytical meditation. But spend a couple minutes on motivation. And then if you have, say you have 15 minutes left, maybe spend 5 minutes on just watching your breath or some kind of placement meditation to generate some mental stability, clarity, focus, and then spend the next 10 minutes on analytical meditation. Right? So it's good to use both in each session. So now, compassion. So there's so much to say about compassion and so little time left. We'll leave time for questions. So basically, compassion is this. Compassion is, and it's good to distinguish from empathy. So compassion is when we see suffering, right? Dukkha in Sanskrit, or Pali, dukkha, which can mean dis-ease, discomfort, dissatisfaction. These are all kind of permutations of dukkha. But usually translate in English as suffering. Very, very gross, like physical pain, headaches, unhappiness, sadness, to very, very subtle, just having a slight disease, discontentment, not being fully content. So all these different, from very gross to very subtle permutations of suffering. So the thing is, when we observe those, in our own experience, we observe, that we're suffering. We have a headache, we have pain, we have, we're fed up with all the mental chatter, for example. Fed up with having to be with this person all the time, or whatever. So all different kinds, of suffering happen. So when we observe those, then instead of reacting with, aversion, just trying to push it away, or just trying to forget about it, or making judgments, I'm so bad. Why do you have to think like that? Or just generating more frustration, with ourselves. Rather than reacting in any of those kind of ways, just observing, this is what I experience, this is how I feel. I'm experiencing suffering. And reacting to it just with the wish, with the affectionate wish, may I be free from that, right? That's all, right? So suffering is just compassion is observing suffering, we are ourselves or others, and reacting to it with the simple wish, may, in our own case, may I be free from that form of suffering. In the case of others, may they be free from that form of suffering. That's all. Compassion is just wishing for ourselves or others to be free from suffering, or dissatisfaction, whatever form it takes. Right? So it's very simple, very beautiful, very powerful, and very useful attitude to generate, and therefore a thing to meditate on, to generate familiarity with reacting. Because this is not an ordinary way. It's not an ordinary way we react in many situations. Right? Many situations we don't react with compassion. Some we do, but many we don't. Right? But we can expand the kind of range of situations that we can become a natural way we react to different kinds of suffering.
Is this the Tonglen practice?
The Tonglen builds on it. Tonglen is much more complex. Tonglen is based on compassion, but it involves a lot of other things. It's much more complex. This is just simple compassion. So the difference with empathy. Empathy is when we empathize with the suffering of others. We're aware of the suffering of others, not just in an intellectual way, but in a visceral way. We resonate with the suffering of others. We see other people having a hard time and suffering, and we feel a degree of that ourselves. We can imagine, we put ourselves in that place, in that person's place. We can imagine what it would be like to have that, and we feel sincere concern for the person. But the difference with compassion is we shift from recognizing what another person's feeling to responding to that with a wish to do something about it. A wish, or not a wish to do something about it ourselves necessarily, but a wish that something be done. A wish that the person can be free from the suffering. right? So it's a kind of a subtle distinction between empathy. Empathy, I empathize with your compassion. I feel it. I know what it must be like. I think I know what it must be like. I try to know what it must be like. You know, I feel a degree of the person's experience. But compassion is kind of being more proactive. It's being like, I wish, you know, something, I could do something, or something could be done to relieve you of your suffering. Yes?
When you spoke of empathy, the mirror neurons that came, isn't that one of those three factors, four factors, like the third factor you had missed out, right? Like
The mirror, what's neurons?
mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons.
Is it Venerable, by chance, is it the thing that the brain is not fixed? It is not like sight is at one point, hearing one point. It is a lot
I
more
just remember.
flexible.
No, it's not that. No, that was the first one, neuroplasticity. Now, the third one I missed earlier. Somebody is still thinking about. So the third one is this, there's new research showing how much the body and mind are interconnected. This feedback between the body and mind that he was speaking about in terms of highways. So these are I was talking about earlier, about the four developments in the field of, I guess, neuroscience, you could say, which enabled this whole field of contemplative neuroscience to expand. The third one I couldn't remember earlier is this recognition that, you know, mental states dramatically affect our physical being, our physical health, and also our physical health dramatically affects the kind of mental states that we have. Especially you think about the immune system. Like if we're unhappy, we're depressed, or we're anxious and worried all the time, it weakens our immune system. We're more susceptible to disease, we're more likely to have cognitive heart failure, and so forth. Whereas if we're relaxed, we're at ease, we have a positive outlook in life, we're less susceptible to disease, less likely to have, you know, deteriorative illnesses in the long term. So let's just do 3 minutes of meditation before, and then the rest of the time for questions. We'll stop at 8. Okay? So with meditation on compassion, so we start with ourselves, right? If we don't sincerely have compassion for ourselves, then compassion for others is just empty words. So we start with ourselves. So just simply observe yourself, observe your life, observe your body and mind in the present moment. Or you can think about, so this is analytical meditation, right? Don't be afraid to think. The more you think, the better. But think about what we're focusing on. We're focusing on compassion. So any thoughts related to compassion are fine, right? So first we have to observe, well, what kind of suffering do I have? Do I have suffering or not? If I do, what kind of suffering do I have? Do I have physical suffering, or mental problems, disease, discomfort? And then and then look at all the different kind of, you know, disease, discomfort, dissatisfaction, problems, you know, unpleasant experiences, or even pleasant but not fulfilling experiences that we have. And as you see how each of those are a source of disturbance to us in our life, a source of suffering, then then you experience suffering. Then in each case, just react with this. You can even think the words aloud in your mind. May I be free from this. May I be free from this kind of suffering. Right? And just do that again and again, and you'll see this attitude, it starts to build. A certain sincere wish to be free from suffering, it builds in the mind. And that is compassion. Right? So spend about 3 minutes meditating like that. Looking at different sufferings you experience, and then in response to each one, generating the wish, the sincere wish, may I be free from this suffering. can relax your attention there. So then if there's any questions, I'll try to answer.
I want to know how you have made a connection. You started with shamatha, and then you introduced the idea of physiology, etc. And then you went analytical meditation briefly, and then you came to compassion. So what is it how you made the links?
Well, I mean, I was setting out to introduce mindfulness meditation and compassion meditation on mindfulness and compassion for the whole course today. But then, usually we start by meditating a little bit at the beginning. So then I thought, well, I might as well and we usually do breathing meditation at the beginning. So I thought I might as well use that to just introduce mindfulness meditation, because it's a kind of mindfulness meditation. So then I talked about different kinds of meditation and the placement meditation, the posture, and then we did some meditation on the mind also, just watching the mind as an object of placement meditation, just simply watching the mind. Which, I'm interested to know how that went for you all, because it can be a very fascinating kind of meditation. Actually, there's an article. Someone sent me a link to an article about this research being done at Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. I don't forget by who, anyway, about awe, about the effect of awe, A-W-E, awe. I don't know, what's something you see in India that you feel awe about? Maybe you see the Ganga River for the first time, this huge Ganga, river and all the sand and the huge river. You feel kind of, oh wow, amazing. Or, I don't know, what do you feel awe about?
Looking at the night sky, and it's like having so many stars.
Yeah, looking at the stars at night in a place where you can also see the stars, like, wow, yeah, it brings awe.
The Himalayas.
Yeah, the Himalayas, and the white on top of the mountains, you see the Himalayas, yeah, exactly. So how that kind of experience that we have is really beneficial it's very beneficial for our body and our mind in many different ways. So there's been recent research done about this experience of awe and how it really is very healthy, physically it's very healthy, and how it reinforces many, many positive emotions. And one reason is because it makes us feel, usually, we go around, feeling really big in the world, like, I need an auto rickshaw, I need a car now, I need food, I want this, do that. Feeling very big in the world. So when problems come, we feel totally overwhelmed by them. Whereas awe, we have the opposite. All of a sudden we feel very small in the world. And the world is huge and beautiful. It's a perception of beauty. And so we feel connected with this huge, beautiful world, right? It's a very positive emotion, right? So I was thinking, actually, I remember the first time I did meditation in the United States, in a college class, especially watching the mind, kind of Zen meditation. But similar to what we're doing, just sitting watching the mind. It was the first time I ever looked at my own mind. Maybe I think for many people, before they learn how to meditate, they really never have the experience of just stopping and looking inside at their own mind, about what's happening, what is my mind. And I remember feeling this sense of it's like, to me, my mind felt like a huge landscape, like looking over some mountains and fields and, plains, and feeling like there's all these places to explore, to go look, to see what it's like. I felt like my mind seemed like this huge landscape that I never heard of before, that all of a sudden I discovered like a new continent to explore or something. So I think there's many I think in meditation also, oftentimes you have experiences of awe, which is very positive. Especially you discover things about yourself, you gain insights about relationships or about your own dramas, your own behavior that you didn't see before. And then, you become more perceptive, become much more perceptive. So that can also lead to experiences of awe. So it's another very positive aspect of meditation that is not talked about very much. You don't hear about people speaking about very much. But so we did placement meditation first, and then I wanted to talk about analytical meditation next, and specifically compassion meditation as an example of analytical meditation. But then before we do that, I wanted to do the motivation, right? Because motivation is very important for a meditation session. So then I thought, well, as part of the motivation, maybe it's kind of helpful to know something about some of the benefits of meditation, or I guess the kind of the exciting advent of the modern scientific study of meditation. How this isn't something, it is something brilliant that's been passed down from ancient wisdom traditions, but it's not only this stuff of ancient wisdom traditions, it's also something that the benefits of meditation are very well documented with modern scientific techniques, which is something really exciting. So I think that can be part of us, because part of generating a motivation is having confidence that what you're doing is really something useful. And generating that kind of confidence by looking at the kind of research that's being done on contemplative practices now, it can help build that kind of confidence that, yeah, this is something really worthwhile spending time doing. It's something that really is beneficial, regardless of one's religious beliefs. But it's beneficial just as a way of becoming a better person. And then the meditation, we just did some on compassion. So that was kind of the way I was structuring it in my mind.
You touched very little on compassion.
Yeah.
As such, because
Yeah.
you looked at the title of the talk today.
Yes.
It was mindfulness and compassion.
Yes.
So, I expected a little more of compassion.
Yes. Come back tomorrow. Yes, okay.
We don't have much time, I know, but
Yeah.
there are certain levels of shamatha meditation. So
Yes.
could you, very briefly, in about say 1 minute, could you just just tell me about what are these levels of shamatha meditation?
Yes, there's the first, second, fourth jhana. They're called the 4 jhanas. They're called the first, second, fourth jhana. They're each more and more subtle states of mind. I guess in the first, you're still craving pleasant experiences. In the first, you're still kind of craving pleasant feelings. In the second, you're craving neutral feelings. In the third, you're not craving pleasant or neutral feelings. But there's still some kind of attachment to just existing, experiencing, right? Roughly. And then the fourth one, I don't remember. Anyway, they're more and more subtle. There's 4, they belong to the jhanas of the form realms, the concentrations of the form realm. So by the power of those, you take rebirth in it's called a form realm. It's like a deva existence. And then there's the 4 concentrations of the formless realm, where one person meditates, and they're progressively more subtle. So you meditate on boundless space, boundless consciousness, nothingness, and then not nothing and not something. That's the most subtle. So they're 4 level. Anyway, we don't have time to go into detail now. Maybe tomorrow, next day. So let's dedicate the merit. So think of whatever positive energy we've dedicated together, we've generated together tonight. Think of whatever virtue, whatever merit, whatever positive energy we've created together. Rejoice. Think how wonderful it is. Both rejoice in one's own effort and the efforts of all the others in the class. And then think of all the good things done by all sentient beings and all enlightened beings throughout the universe, in the past, in the present, and the future, and rejoice thinking how wonderful it is. So then think of this great collection of positive energy that gathered together, and recognizing that it has no inherent fixed existence from its own side. It all is arising and passing away, and exists independent upon mind and upon our awareness and consciousness. And is changing, is an interdependently arising phenomena. So all of this powerful positive energy gathered together, we dedicate. In short, may ourselves and all sentient beings be free from every form of suffering of body and mind, as individuals, as families, as communities, as nations, as a planet Earth, a community of planet Earth, and we all be free from suffering. And then whatever beings exist throughout the world, hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, human beings, gods and demigods, whatever form of beings exist. May they all be free from every form of suffering. And not only that, may we and all other sentient beings have every happiness up to full enlightenment. Both mundane and super mundane happiness. And may all of our actions contribute towards that, towards achieving the welfare of all sentient beings. Okay, so we'll stop there. So thank you all for your participation, and I hope we meet again in the future.